Yet, not yet. We
Now
are
it
now, though.
says recording. We're on the air.
Hey, everybody, welcome to the SoundBroker Mastermind group here on this Wednesday. What a beautiful snowy day it is all over the country, except where it's not snowing. I'm wondering, is it snowing in Florida? Anybody who here is in Florida? Is it snowing in Florida? Is it snowing in New Orleans? Is it? I know it snowed here in. I know it snowed here in Summerlin uh, the other day, and so I got a million phone calls from people telling me that it snowing in Las Vegas, and so, but it wasn't snowing where I am. I'm in the southern part
It's
of
not
Las
snowing
Vegas.
here
I'm
in
in Henderson.
Florida.
What?
All right,
Not-
this just in. Chris Carlton confirms that it is not snowing in Florida.
is it snowing up in Canada, Ron?
Well, there's Ron. Let's see. Go ahead, Ron.
Is it snowing? We need a weather report up in Canada.
A little bit.
All right, well, that's normal for you then. Okay. So anyway, welcome to the SoundBroker Mastermind Roundtable, where we discuss current events and how to stay alive until this COVID thing is behind us. And as we start to get closer and closer to the vaccinations, it looks like it's getting brighter and brighter and brighter. And you could see the light at the end of the tunnel, but unfortunately, I think it still might be the train. And so that's what I'm worried about right now. But we've got a lot to talk about today. We're going to talk about maintaining our health. We're talking about sleep, PPO, PPP, SVO, SBA, a lot of initials here. And we're going to talk about IATSE. Hey, that's like the Polish guy.
Polish, yeah, right? The Polish Union.
IATSE. I tried to get Tim Murdoch in the room today, our IATSE representative, but he's actually in an IATSE meeting right now. We'll talk about that, the PUA. Also, we're going to talk about your favorite executive order. And the last thing that I want to discuss today is the movie Soul by Disney. If you haven't seen it yet, you don't have time to do it right now, but it's a must watch. So let's talk about it. So before we go in any further, I just want to say that everything that you hear today is an opinion of the person who's saying it in the room. You don't know if it's true or not. We're hoping it is, but it's up to you to do your own research. And by show of hands, will all the doctors raise your right hand? All right, there were no right hand raised, so there are no doctors in the room, so we could talk about them. And that's how I feel. But you have to remember one thing. Remember, do your own research. What we're saying, we all believe to be true, but it is our opinion. Okay? So there you have it. Oh, by the way, all you kids that are listening, I'd like to give you some advice that Soupy Sales gave you. And that is go into your daddy's pockets and these little green pieces of paper. All right, don't worry about that.
Oh, man.
I'm off the wall.
Right off the rails. Yeah, right off the rails.
Anyway, and also today is today's not the special day, but I just read that Bill Graham would have been 91 today. 91. Does anybody have any stories about Bill Graham? Anybody in the room have anything they want to say about Bill Graham? Anybody?
Looks like Michael does. Let me unmute him. Go ahead. Oh, yeah, I have to ask you to unmute.
Michael.
Tell
us your story about Bill Graham.
So I don't have it handy, but my first Grateful Dead concert was May 5th, 1968 in Central Park, but who's counting? And I have a great picture somewhere, which I can share with everyone, of Bill Graham at the band shell in Central Park in New York being interviewed. And it was just with, I think with the Dead in the background. And he introduced the bands, and I forget exactly what he said, but he was everywhere. I mean, he, as you know, my brother worked for him, and he was a tough taskmaster, according to Peter, but he made it all happen for all of us.
Absolutely. Well, Bill Graham, I remember going to the summit meetings. And I remember him talking about how he originally wanted to go and do what Live Nation was doing in AEG, but everybody begged him not to do it, so he didn't do it. And then, of course, he had a lot of animosity towards Live Nation and AEG for going national when he could have done it, but he didn't. But my first experience with Bill Graham was before I was actually active live in the business. And I had gone up to Watkins Glen to see a concert with the Grateful Dead and the Allman Brothers. And somehow I ended up backstage, and it was really hot. And Bill Graham had a hose, and he was hosing down all the people on the other side of the backstage area. And he said to me, "Hey, it's really hot, and I want to see these guys get some sort of comfort." And I've met him many, many times in my life. Super guy, really nice, and I hope that he rests in peace. And he did leave a huge legacy for us in our industry. Anyway, so speaking of that, did anybody see the IATSE letter that they sent to President Biden? Did anybody want to comment on that?
Yeah, it's about time.
Yeah, I was going to say it was a little late, but it was pretty cool. It was offering the services of lots of people that are out of work that know how to coordinate things and work hard on things, offering them to assist.
Yeah, let me read it a little bit. I have it right in front of me. It's to Mr. President. This letter is to formally offer the White House COVID response team and FEMA our infrastructure and labor in an effort to build or convert vaccination sites across the country. As the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, IATSE, we are the largest labor union in America, representing stagehands, certified riggers, and other craftspeople who work behind the scenes in conference centers, arenas, theaters, and other live event venues. As you know, these workers have been unable to return to work due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but they stand ready to do their part when called upon. IATSE workers throughout the country have been working alongside the Army Corps of Engineers, FEMA, in arenas and convention centers for years in disaster response situation. And in April, we helped convert numerous facilities into field hospitals in response to the COVID-19 crisis. The skills required to convert these facilities are not much different than those required to load and rock and roll concerts and other live events. Working with the field hospital installation designed by the Army Corps of Engineers, the IATSE and contractors can typically pre-install the lighting, lights, rigging, electric, quickly and efficiently. IATSE locals throughout the country have even developed a series of pro-design rigs to allow variations based on venue size. The equipment can be power washed, sanitized, shrink wrapped, and can be delivered to locations for installation. Together, we have a unique opportunity not only to help beat this virus and save lives, but also get these skilled union technicians back to work. Let's build back better together. And that was signed by the president of the IATSE International, Matthew Loeb. So, hey, that's pretty cool. And not only that, you guys learned one thing about me is that I know how to read, and I could read aloud. So,
well, some words anyway. If they got to the bigger words, you would have skipped over them. But the question is, have the IATSE gotten any response to that from anybody in the administration?
To the best of my knowledge, I haven't heard anything to the contrary that they have gotten anything back. But I'm sure that with all that's going on, that somebody is actually pushing it, and so I'm sure we'll get an update next week from Tim. I've actually assigned him that responsibility. But with all the things, I also believe that the reality is that there, this is being picked up because it's been picked up by the Wall Street Journal, the Post, I mean, all of these different organizations. And it seems that they also have the backing of Live Nation and AEG. Does anybody know what Ann Schultz Entertainment Group is? Anybody in the room knows what Ann Schultz is?
That's another huge conglomerate like Live Nation and AEG. Or is it AEG? Is the A in AEG Ann Schultz maybe?
AEG, that's right. Ann Schultz Entertainment Group. Duh. I never knew that before. I actually never knew that it had a name. I always thought it was, AEG.
Right, kind of like AIG, the insurance company.
My mind has been blown. Well, this would be a great Jeopardy question.
Yeah. Hey now.
Oh, you guys are making me work too hard for this. Unbelievable.
So I think the average person's, response to that letter would be something along the lines of, why would we want to hire expensive union labor when we can have all these thousands of volunteers that are work for nothing?
Well, my answer would be that you want skilled labor. You don't want somebody to be hanging things over people's heads that don't know what they're doing. That's for sure. You know,
I think the right response is you get what you pay for.
I agree, but I think the natural knee-jerk reaction from maybe even the administration might be that we have thousands of volunteers. We're okay. We're good.
well, one person there's two people in the room that can address this. One, I think, is Brian, and the other is Eric, because they're both involved in working with different people and different, So, Brian, what do you have to say? Okay, so well,
Oh, no. Screen's relayed up. I agree. You get what you pay for on this. And while there's a lot of volunteers and there's a lot of people that are willing to volunteer, most of your venues are not going to just let anybody walk in there. And I know in the North Carolina area, in the Charlotte area, most of our COVID distribution is being done at the facilities. Now, most of the work right now is being done in the parking lot. They're not going indoors with it. So everything's set up in the parking lots for distribution. But again, it depends on the venue. You're not going to get union. If it's a union house, they're not going to let anybody but union go in there and do the work anyway. So.
Yeah. Keep in mind that there really isn't any need for rigging and overhead anything. It's a bunch of pop-up tents, tables, chairs, and cones, and then organization. So I don't really get this whole thing.
So we're back to building field hospitals down here. So, I mean, that's where it would be, the help would be converting the arena into a field hospital. So that would, then you would need the lighting and stuff for that.
Yeah, well, I would also say that they also want to use the venues that are already existing as places to do the vaccinations. Like I was talking with Sean, is in the room. I can't see if he's in the room right now, but Sean was telling me that he's working possibly with the Dodgers and using Dodger Stadium to be able to organize all of that so that they could do vaccinations over there.
Well, yeah, vaccinations are happening at Dodger Stadium for sure.
Yeah, and of all the different theaters that are around the country, I mean, if we open them up for vaccinations, then all of a sudden, wow, look at all the different opportunities people will have, rather than having to drive, 40 minutes or 50 minutes to get to a vaccination location. There are theaters everywhere. And I would think that would be a good idea. I mean, because I know they're thinking about building little booths outside of the Walmarts and outside of the Smiths and outside of the CVCs and all of that, all of those other places. But I haven't seen anything other than that on paper. Has anybody seen anything like that?
I saw a picture of a booth outside the CVS for sure.
CVS in my town has 2 booths sitting outside it. The other thing that they're doing is they're going into vacated standalone shopping facilities like Rite Aids that have closed, and they're setting them up in the parking lots of those, and they're also doing drive-through testing and shots in those vacated retail spaces. And that way the landlord's getting some money, but not what he would get if it was a regular tenant in there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the goal is to get everybody vaccinated, get as many people vaccinated as possible, as soon as possible. And it's sort of happening, but I feel like it's not happening as fast as they wanted it to happen.
Well, last week we had one person in the room, David Dansky, who got a shot. Anybody else had? David, you did get your shot, right?
I got my shot on Sunday.
All right. Michael, did you get yours?
Got shot number 1, it sounds like.
Nobody else?
In New York, it's really scattered. I mean, I was online night and day. I found a place in the Bronx. 10 a.m. in the morning, I was online. They had a 10:45 appointment. I said to my wife, put your shoes on. We were there at 10:45. I waited an hour and a half, which was fine. Done. I'm a little nervous about the second shot, whether they'll have it, but one thing at a time. I'm thankful.
You just made me think of something, Michael. What happens if they don't for some reason have the second shot available when you need it?
Well, Governor Cuomo says they will, but let's assume they don't. What I did, I made a backup appointment somewhere else, very close in time to the 4 weeks, because I was able to find it. But I got Moderna, and I don't even know if they'll have that. They could have Pfizer. It'll be a mess. That's the bottom line, But the governor said they're holding back second vaccines. But it could be the place I went to won't get it for, the logistics are crazy as we're discussing. But, if I don't get exactly 4 weeks, if I get it at 6 weeks, I'm not going to go nuts, I think all this will fall into place over time. Some states are better than others.
Yeah, it's just a question of how much time. Like,
Well, the
is it going to be
latest-
is it going to be a
the latest-
year from now, and we're still not herd immune?
Okay, this is the latest news, and that is that Biden signed one of his executive orders. And basically, what the executive order says is that they've just ordered enough vaccines to vaccinate 300 million Americans by the end of the summer. And I was listening to some experts on a podcast that I listened to. And by the way, I will recommend this podcast. It's called The Daily with Michael Barbaro. It's put out by the New York Times. It's a 20-minute in-depth analysis of one story every day. They do one story every day, and this one was about vaccines and getting vaccinated. And the experts seem to feel that by June there's going to be enough vaccinations where people are going to start going back to a normal way of life, and that would be great for our industry, because right now things are really rough for the industry. Which also talks about the fact that, what do we do for survival until then? And then, of course, now would bring us into, I guess, a topic that's close to Eric Todd's heart, and that would be regarding the monies that are available to us. And Eric, you want to say anything about that now?
I'd love to. We want to talk about the shuttered venue grant.
Sure.
The problem with the shuttered venue grant is that it may have been intended to focus on saving live events, but it's only focusing on venues. And when you take away all the support companies, which is about 90% of the overall industry that make, all the wheels that turn, all the parts that move, and all the people that do it, there is no industry without the rest. A stage that is saved with no production industry is a warehouse or a piece of real estate that sits empty because they can't put on any projects in there. So the way this language is written, it excludes production specifically. However, I did speak to somebody in the Office of Standards in Washington who came up with this cockamamie NAICS code to give 3.5 times the PPP amount. So to restaurants that never stop one day of serving food, and hotels that are still open, although I grant you the hotels are not doing well. And his comment was that he was fairly familiar with the Save Our Stages program because he was involved in some of the early discussion, and it was intended for the industry. But for some reason, Chuck Schumer, I guess, got the bee in his bonnet that saving stages and walking around with Jerry Seinfeld was cool enough to just advocate for stages. So the language precludes us. But what this guy did tell me in a very detailed conversation is there is a public review, and actually Mike Strickland put this out today in his email blast for whoever's on it, that there is a public review when the standard is published, and there are 30 days and even though it's an interim final rule, which kind of sounds like it's just an interim rule, because if it's final, they wouldn't say interim. But the public comment, I was told, are all paid attention to very strictly. And the SBA is mandated to pay attention to everyone commenting and to be looking for key issues that they may not be aware of. So the real message here is that everybody that you can get to be writing to the SBA now, and the moment that the comment session opens up for the on the interim final rule, we should be bombarding them with emails and talking about, for one, why are we excluded? And for two, more importantly, now that PPP2 is out, if you take PPP2, you're automatically excluded from the Save Our Stages bill, which is ridiculous. Why not alter the language? So if we took a PPP and your grant would be higher, pay back the PPP with the grant and get the rest of the grant, because it's providing 45% of a venue's income for an entire year. That's a lot of money in many cases, way more than they would get in PPP by a large factor. Because as we all know, most venues, all of the staff that comes in is per show. There's, obviously there's a management structure, but beyond that, it's not like they have a year of full-time payroll for 200 people. I mean, obviously the larger venues in the major cities do, but I mean, they could be supplying grants to the local carnival because they meet the test. They promote it and they sell tickets. So the little carnival down the block could be getting the Save Our Stages grant.
Yeah. Now, speaking of which, there's an organization right now called Save Live Events Now, and that is the basically the Save Live Events Now coalition. It represents Live Nation, AEG, WME, CAA. Those are talent agencies as well. Grammys, Polestar, and basically. They are saying for nearly 12 months, live workers across the country have gone without a consistent paycheck, and some have lost health insurance. And in March, in 2021, most will lose unemployment as well. So this letter goes on to acknowledge that the Paycheck Protection Program, the shuttered venues grants, all of these things, and we need more help. That was in Polestar this week. We'll throw the link into the chat. But does anybody know anything more about that other than what Eric has said? Okay, I love this. It's like what they say. Crickets, I tell you, crickets. Well, okay, so basically, here's the letter that went out, and it went out on Save Live Events Now, and it was to Pelosi, Schumer, Kevin McCarthy, and Mitch McConnell. And basically the letter says live events industry is an economic and cultural anchor for communities all across the country. But March 2021 will mark a full year since the pandemic has put a screeching halt to live events, and therefore the livelihoods of so many people that make up vast, diverse live events ecosystem. So since March, 95% of all live events were canceled. And it goes on and on and on. But we will get you that letter. I think Michael Strickland sent that out as well. And so basically there is now a big push. And by the way, I'll give you the email address if you want to send anything to it. It's info@saveliveentsnow.com. So just the way it sounds, Save Live Events Now. And so it's EE live events. It's EE. So remember to put both E's in there. EEE. That reminds me of a song that uses 4 E's in a sentence. And you've heard it many times. It goes, 4 E's, a jolly good fellow. So there you have it. And that should help you remember it as well. All right, everybody sing. All right. So let's open this up now. Who has something else they want to say? Anybody have anything at all that they want to bring up that we haven't covered right now, either involve what we've already spoken about or something else you want to add to the conversation?
Hey,
Ken,
Jim,
I would love to. Yeah, go ahead, Ken.
what is your favorite Bernie meme stuck in front of something? You see the one where the Sound of Music and is singing, about Bernie too, and he's sitting in the field with Julie Andrews.
Oh, no, it's amazing. The person who makes those mittens can no longer keep up with the mitten order. It's like unbelievable. It's like
that was a phenomenon, was it not? I mean, Bernie Sanders, He's just attending the inauguration. He's just minding his own business. Somebody takes a picture of him sitting in a little folding chair, and it goes totally crazy on the internet. That's amazing. That wouldn't have happened 40, 50 years ago.
Yeah, because they didn't have the internet 40 years ago, or Twitter, or Facebook.
Hey, now.
Yeah.
He would have to go on the television set or something. Anyway, yeah, that was quite a phenomenon, that birding thing. I wanted to ask Bruce Fallis, though. Bruce, have you heard anything about corporate events, and have you gotten any inquiries about your availability in, say, September or October or anything like that?
Well, did I tell you last week? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're perfect.
About my Blue Cross client.
I don't know. Did we hear about that last week?
I was talking to somebody, but so about a month ago, I had talked to my Blue Cross client, and I do probably 12 shows a year for them, most of them regional shows. So we go to different states for the, you know, they handle all the government employee Blue Cross accounts. So they gave me the dates starting in June. So a month ago, I was booking about 5 days per month, you know, starting in June. And last week, I touched base with my producer, who, you know, takes me around to these various things, and they said that their Blue Cross had a travel ban that ended in June. Last week they extended it to 2022. So
No.
everything, all my Blue Cross shut now. My whole fall just went away. My summer and fall.
Wow, what you were hoping, stuff that you were hoping would actually happen.
My God, there was some light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, that's what I'm afraid is going to happen with a lot of us. Yeah.
Right. Now, a little bit of light. I have another client. These are my two clients that I do shows for. We do Builders Association award shows, and they're usually 2 or 3 days each, and then various places around the country. Some of them are attached to builders conventions where you know, it's a convention floor where you're looking at roofs and windows and, you know, sinks and all that kind of bullshit, right? They have officially, at this moment in time, booked 2 Austin shows and 3 Orlando shows for the summer and fall. So that's where that's at. They have not gone away yet. Now, Austin, you know, Texas and Orlando are the 2 states that haven't been closed. So do I think they're going to happen? If things get even a little bit better, yeah, I keep doing these builder shows in the studio. We've been doing Zooms, probably one, you know, November I was pretty busy, so I did about 4 of them in November. And it's usually about 1 every other month or so. And all the building associations, man, they hate this. They're like, you know what, the hell with this. We're getting back together and we're having conventions and we're doing our award show because this really sucks. And so I'm kind of thinking that it's going to happen.
So yeah, but it's the curious thing is the people that you talk to say that kind of stuff, but what do their lawyers and their insurance companies and people like that say? Because you know, it has to be done safely, right?
Right. I can only tell you what the production people and you know, the building associations, you know, that I deal with directly, sort of on site. You know.
Yeah,
so,
I personally think it's about the vaccine. The vaccine, when the vaccine has a, you know, reaches that, what's that thing called? The certain threshold, and
it's like
not herd immunity, you know, but when we get enough people vaccinated, then it's going to be like, okay, we can do this. We can get together and stuff. I mean, they just lifted the stay-at-home orders for LA County or Southern California or something. And so, well, we don't have to stay at home any longer, you know, and the restaurants are open and stuff.
Right. Friday, the restaurant's open for outside dining, right?
Right.
Yeah, I just booked like 3 lunches with Gary. He called me up. He was jumping out of his pants. He said, dude, this weekend we're going to lunch.
Right, okay, right. Right. But yeah, so Kurt has a question. What do you got, Kurt?
Okay.
So I was trying to unmute you at the same time as you were trying to unmute you, so we counteracted each other. Sorry.
So something I'm noticing is about the client relationships. In the last couple of months, I mean, I will very likely make it through to the point where we're doing stuff again, but several of the organizations, not just some corporate, some of the charitable stuff that I do, some of the city-based events that I do, and a few of the rock and roll things, my contacts, several of them have not weathered the storm, and they have left the organizations that they used to work for. They have not been replaced, and there is no schedule to replace them. And most of them have landed jobs in the tech sector or other places where in their new role, they're no longer going to be doing any kind of event production or responsible for who is involved in events at their new location. So I'm getting kind of concerned that even though I weathered the storm, a lot of these relationships, some of them are 20 years in the making.
Right, and you count on them for repeat business, right?
Yeah, we'll be friends with these people, but we're not going to have a relationship that is, you know, doing events of any kind anymore. And that whoever fills the role when the time comes, you know, it's unlikely that the information will be transferred to them, especially the longer it takes, you know. And I think
Wow.
we get a lot of people trying to reinvent the whole process from the ground up once we get going. So I think there might be the Wild West as far as clients go, even if you weather the storm financially and have all your gear when the time comes. I mean, they're not all like that, but it's something that I'm starting to notice, that a lot of these people who we depend on for the relationships are no longer able to just hang out and not have a job. And they've taken, especially in my case in Seattle, tech sector stuff. They've all gone to tech sector stuff.
Kenny?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was talking to Wayne for about an hour and a half today, and I sent out some emails this past week to some of my regular clients. There's, for instance, at Encore, Freeman, there was 7 or 8 labor people that used to, book me on stuff. And, the occasional PSAVs and, video apps, World Stage. I don't know if you've talked to Jeff, but I had a big conversation with Jeff Gibson the other day. And what I'm finding out is on my list of people that I keep updating with every so often, all of these people, all of their emails have been canceled and are coming back to me. And when I've called there, they're not even working there anymore. So, like you and
Just
I,
like Kurt said, yeah.
Yes, you and I and the people of our group, we've developed these relationships, over the last 30 or 40 years and evolve with the changes. And now, like, some of these companies are going to start back up again cold with a bunch of 20-year-olds working in the office, and nobody's going to know anybody. And Wayne and I, pretty much our discussion today was, I'm wondering if this is the beginning of a forced retirement, whether we like it or not. We will probably keep a few shows that we do, but we have to prepare to never be busy again. When last year, 2020, when everything hit the fan, it was going to be my busiest year ever. I was booked the whole year in March when everything fell apart. So, the whole thing was just, hugely scary. So
it is scary, but
Bruce, I love your optimism. That's all I can say.
I think we have to, Bruce. Like I think I've told you this before, Bruce. When that kind of thought comes into your brain, and you have a tendency to think that they're going to hire the young kid, we have to remind ourselves that we are the experienced one that is going to do a better job for them, because we know how to react when the shit hits the fan.
They may not even know us, though. That's my point.
Well, we'll make sure they know us, especially when the shit hits the fan.
I've been connecting with people that have, a lot of times 5 emails will come back from a company that people are no longer there, and they'll say, talk to so-and-so. And I've emailed them and said, hey, you know who I am? Well, hey, what's going on?
Right. Well, that's what we got to do. Got to do a lot of that, right?
Yeah, but it's just that what I've been finding, I basically work for probably 40 or 50 people around the country through the course of the year. Some of these people, one thing a year, and then my regulars are one thing a month, and it's just, everything is just disintegrated. And the startup is not going to be you and I hitting the ground running. It ain't going to be that. It's going to be, holy shit, who do we talk to now? And why are they hiring these $300 a day people that, it's just going to be
because
a
they
mess.
can, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because
so Bruce, what do you hear about BlizzCon? BlizzCon is a big gig that employs a lot of people. Typically the end of October. That's kind of prime, area. Prime time frame.
One of my big ones was anime. In fact,
when's that?
That's the first week. It's usually July 1st to the 10th or 11th. And Wayne and I have been doing that every year for the last 20 years. And it's huge. Wow. And I was going to call tomorrow and talk to people and see if it's even just floating around that they might do it. But that's pretty soon. That's July.
Yeah, I think that's I think that's a little overly optimistic to think that we're going to be back in full swing by July.
Yeah,
I can add.
Well, it all depends on the vaccinations. It really all depends on the vaccinations, because there are some experts that say that we will. But one of the things there are some jobs out there. Steve Sluter is in the room, and he's doing, he'll talk about one of his jobs that he's got right now. And then I'm going to lead into it by saying that I talked to somebody who is doing something in Tampa. There's a comedian called Michael Epps, and evidently he sold out 2 shows with a group of comedians in Tampa. Of course, it's not a full arena. It's partial, but still, nonetheless, it's sold out. Now, I don't know about you guys. How many people know who Michael Epps is? Does anybody know who Michael Epps is? Even the comedian, Chris, tell me a little bit about him.
I've only seen a little bit of his stuff on Netflix.
Says that our internet connection is unstable.
Internet connection unstable. Well, that's because we're an unstable, or I'm an unstable person.
I keep freezing up, man.
Oh man, don't freeze up. It's okay.
I can't hear Jan now. He's muted.
Well, he muted himself just to confuse you.
That's just to confuse you. Okay, that's good
Right
for
there.
the people out there, because now, like Biden, I'm doing ASL. We got to get somebody in the corner to do ASL. I know. Maybe we'll use Byron Scott on that, right, Brian? Do you know the ASL part? But Steve, seriously, before Brian starts talking about ASL, talk a little bit about the NFL experience.
I don't know a whole lot about it outside that I've got a crew there. I haven't been too involved, and Jan, you know how UPS is treating us right now. That's another whole topic.
Yes, not for this
UPS service. Yeah,
not for this.
Yeah, we have audio out there for, I don't even know how many people at this point, how many they sold tickets for, but it's a limited amount. And I guess they're going to handle social distancing that way. Like I said, I'm not out there. I don't really have too much information outside of what my guys are doing, setting up an overall paging emergency type background system with multiple small stages all over.
Is that
I
at
think
the
you're
Super Bowl,
farther
Steve?
out there than you think, Steve. I think you're farther out there than you think. That's right.
Hey, Steve, are you doing audio on top of the towers with the TVs, the big multi-screen towers?
Yeah, I think we're doing audio for all that stuff.
Yeah, originally I spec'd all that stuff for the video people here in LA. I was going to go out, and then they used a local guy. Gee, I wonder who that was.
yeah, it's the same. It's the same guy. That's been doing it for the last few years.
Yeah. That's pretty easy, but it would have been nice to come out. That's for sure.
Sure.
Yeah, but I think my point is that the idea is that people want to be entertained now more than ever before. It's causing so much grief out there that people want to go to bars and restaurants, that the virus is spreading. I mean, I just read that basically in England right now, in England, they now are quarantining their own citizens that come back into England. They're forcing them to stay in a hotel for 2 weeks. So people do want to get out there. People do want to be entertained. And the second why do you think there is not enough vaccine to go around? It's not because it's just sitting around doing nothing. It's just, one, there's not enough vaccine, and two, the demand for the vaccine is off the hook. Wouldn't you say that would be accurate? I mean, I guess the person in the room that I would like to ask the most about this is Brian. What do you think?
I think it's, there is a demand. I still see that there's those naysayers that are out there, but people want to get out. I did an event December 19th, chilly day outdoors. We had more people there than we were expecting, but they still respected each other and stayed apart from each other. And then just to follow up with what Chris and them were saying, and Bruce, I'm actually getting inquiries for starting late May through July right now for stuff that I have never had before. But the thing of it is they're really wanting to scale it back. Instead of being a 3-day event, they want to turn it into a 1-day event, which I'm going to save a little bit of money from my end, but you're not going to save a lot. But, I'm starting to get some feelers, but anything that's related with the governments down here, the towns, they're not letting anything happen before the 4th of July.
Yeah. And in lieu of the actual live show, there is a lot of virtual things going on now. Jim Mingo's in the room from the Music People, and he's involved with doing basically what it would be a NAMM virtual tour, right? Jim, you want to talk a little bit about that and what's going on with that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've been going to the NAMM show for close to 20 years, and I dread going to the NAMM show and all the go around it, but I miss it. I found out I missed it so much this year, and I would kill to be back in Anaheim. I'm in Connecticut, and we have 4 inches of snow, so I always look forward. So we did do a jamboree, and we had an hour every day, and Sure came out at the hour, then QSC, and we had a mini NAMM, and it actually has been amazing the amount of people we had on it, and yeah, that's what we ended up doing. And then I'm curious, I saw a couple, NAMM did their show last week, and I did go on and see a couple of the, it was weird, but I guess this is the new norm.
Now,
I
Jim,
hope that's not the norm for long, though, Jim. What do you think? You think it's going to stick, or you think we're going to get back to getting in person?
Oh, I think we're definitely going to get back. I mean, Infocom is second week of June, and to my knowledge, as of today, it's still on. But
what city does that take place in? Is that a Vegas thing?
It's in Orlando this year, so that's
has a chance of happening because Florida is the do everything state, right?
I shipped my first S6L to a theater in Tampa, as a matter of fact, last week, and they're doing shows. And I mean, they ordered that S6L a year ago, and they just pulled the trigger to actually ship it. So they're booked up. They're doing like 3 shows a week.
Come on, seriously? Wow.
Yeah.
In Florida.
Wow.
Florida.
I don't
So the
know.
other thing that I'm seeing interesting is I've had 2 requests for events that are this fall that they want to do a live stream off of, this is a festival type thing that they've never been interested in live streams or video walls, but they're wanting to live stream so that they can get the revenue from the people that are unwilling to go there. And they're even willing to go up to the bars and stuff around the venues and set them up so that they can spread the people out further. So, I
thought the president of Live Nation came out a couple of weeks ago and said that he expected to do tours in the summer. And did he backtrack? Anybody?
I haven't heard anything about backtracking, but I when I heard that statement, all I thought was, yeah, he's trying to keep the stockholders interested and keep the stockholders thinking positive, because otherwise there'll be a real revolution.
So, and just to relate to a story, I do a lot of work with Fits and the Tantrums, and they booked a tour starting in June, and their tour manager just called me and said their problem wasn't the COVID thing as much as all of the venues that they tried to book are not answering the phone, wouldn't commit, and they had to push the tour back to September. So it's kind of sad on the theater.
It'll be interesting to see how they do starting in September, because that to me feels like the time of year where we're going to see some movement. I saw one headline related to the vaccine implementation that said so-and-so wants to make sure we get so-and-so such and such many vaccinations to happen so that we can plan that, like, by the end of May, the vaccinations are going to all be done. So we're going to be able to start doing things in June. And the thought was, in the headline anyway, that we can plan, as in we can start booking concerts, we can start booking travel, we can start having restaurants open, all those things that we didn't do before, we're going to be able to do, and with a timeline, because of the fact that the vaccine will have a timeline. I thought that was an interesting approach, because that's really what we want. We want to see that light at the end of the tunnel and know that it's really a light, not the train coming at us.
Going to be interesting. And the other thing is, it's a state by state right now. Like, I'm in Connecticut. We're actually ahead of schedule. Our governor has done some things wrong, but he is doing, I think, an amazing job. We have our 75 and older, and we start 65 and older next week. I think it's going to come down to a state thing. I mean, you watch the news and you see LA. I mean, you could fit Connecticut. I mean, there's more people in LA than probably Connecticut.
That's what I was going to say. What's the population of the state of Connecticut? Yeah,
right? You're going to see a lot of these Midwest states and and your Pennsylvanias and New Jerseys that don't have these huge mega Miamis and LAs in them come get through this vaccine, I think, a lot quicker than Miami and LA. So it'd be interesting to see maybe the tours miss the metropolises and end up going to some of the states. So let's see what happens.
Yeah.
One
One
of
of
the
the things, go ahead, Eric, go ahead. Eric, go ahead.
One of the, I've been, I'm just like everybody else here. We're talking to all of our friends and networking daily. And the information I've heard at the moment is there are approximately 18 tours that would be the shed type summer tours that are on paper. And they're trying to, to move toward activating. But at least in the Northeast, all these venues have been completely winterized for one. So the cost to open the venue up and close the venue is significant. Like by me, a venue we service a lot is Jones Beach. It's on the water. I mean, they have a huge program to winterize that and then come back in, examine everything that's there, the roof, et cetera, and then gear back up. And then if with only 18 shows, when these summer venues are used to doing 6 or 7 in some weeks, they can't do it with 2 or 3. And where do they find even the local staff? For people who count on that every year, that's their summer job, is they're working at one of these venues 6 or 7 days a week. When they hear now, well, you can come in every other week for 2 days, they're not going to leave what they're doing or be able to figure out how to come together. So a lot of talk is while the tours may be there, the venues just may not open. How do you open for 3.5 to 4 months and meet your commitment? Like Jones Beach has a commitment to the state of New York. They lease the venue and they have certain financial commitments to make every year. It's never going to happen, at least not for this summer. I mean, I hope it does, but this is information that's pretty reliable that they just won't be able to open a lot of these venues to accommodate these tours. That's a huge problem.
Well, I think Live Nation. I mean, there was an article that what Tina just posted in the chat that the Live Nation says that they'll start resuming concerts in the summer of 2021 if everything goes as scheduled. But again, it's all about the vaccine and the virus, because right now it seems like we're plateauing and we're going down, and they're going to be introducing 300 million vaccines, for the American people. Once the federal government starts getting involved and starts distributing it, and there's stations and there's a game plan, I actually believe that we're going to see some light, some activity where people are going to starting to want to go out and promote the concerts. The people want to go. There's no doubt about it in my mind that people want to go see a show right now. If they couldn't do it safely, they will go. Some would even go and it not be safe. I mean, a bad example would be a very bad example, and I admit it's a bad example, but look what happened on January 6th. Look at all those people that just descended on Washington. They don't believe that the virus even exists, most of those people, and yet they're willing to go out and do something. So I am sure that if there was entertainment there, they would have all moved over to the entertainment and watched the entertainment, if there was a band that was playing. So I'm convinced that once we get the green light to open up, that there's going to be enough entertainment out there, or enough business out there for us to survive. The question is, who's going to survive till that period of time? That's the question.
Well, interestingly, I had a conversation about 2 weeks ago with a very good friend of mine, probably half the people on here know, ran a large festival for many years, came out of the Cleveland Agora. And he's been talking with other production friends, and the concern is coming back is one thing, but who's going to staff it is the bigger concern. He said that there are 5 in particular production managers he knows who are now wearing an orange apron, going 9 to 5 or 10 to 6 or whatever the hours are. They work in a Home Depot. They become store managers. They got benefits, 401, health insurance. They see their kids at dinner. They can go to their kids' activities. They can be with their family. And they're saying, well, why the fuck should I go back to getting on a bus with a bunch of smelly men 40 weeks a year for the same money? And I got to pay my own taxes. And by the time
Same money, really? Really?
I know 5 people that have taken full-time jobs at Home Depot.
maybe the same manager and they're the same friend pool. but that's a big concern.
It must be the same 5 people. That's right. It must be but I'll tell you something. I'm sure these people who've been on the road for 8 months at a time come home and now they're stuck with their family. They're saying, God damn it, get me out of here. Somebody, please put me on the road. Get me in a smelly bus. I'll do anything to get out of here. Well, I guess I'm just basing it on my own family, but
personally, Eric, I think that's a very valid point, and I think that's definitely true for, I'd say maybe 50% of the people that decided to take other jobs. But I think many of those people that took other jobs still have the passion to be on the road or to be producing a show or to do whatever it is they do relating to live events, and they're going to return to that passion when that passion exists. But it really has to be solid for them to come back because they've experienced what steady income is like, and so now they're like, oh well, I don't know if I want to go back to that. But they have that inner passion to return to that thing that they started doing many years ago. Personally, I can't even think about going to work at Home Depot. It's like, really? I'm going to waste this 50-year career that I had and just go and work for Home Depot? I don't think so.
Yeah, but Kenny, you're wearing an orange shirt right now. You're almost ready.
Yeah, see, I'm almost ready, right? Yeah, just call me Homer.
But here's the Hooters. Now, here's the interesting thing, because this leads right into what I wanted to talk about, and that's the Disney movie Soul. If you haven't seen it, I can't recommend it high enough because basically, it made me laugh and it made me cry and it made me laugh and it made me cry, and it's phenomenal. It's an animated picture by Pixar through Disney, and it stars Jamie Foxx as Joe Gardner, who is a musician, and Tina Fey, and this guy Pete Docter, who did a lot of the movies. He directed it. He did Monsters Inc., Up, Inside Out, Toy Story. He was the writer on it. And I'll tell you, the basic concept is what's life all about for you? That's what it's about. What is life all about for you? So the story, without giving away anything, is that here's this guy, Joe Gardner, who is a musician, and he's a jazz musician, but he can't get arrested playing jazz. So he ends up getting the best he could do is get a substitute teacher job working in a junior high or a high school, teaching kids in school how to play music, and he hates it. And then all of a sudden, one of his students calls him up and says, hey, I've got the gig with the #1 jazz player in the world, and I got you an audition. So he goes down, he gets and they're building up his life on what is, how everybody's putting him down for wanting to be a musician and not taking a real job. And then he gets the audition and they love him. And then he gets the gig, and it's his pinnacle moment in his life where he realizes this is everything he's worked for. And he's so excited. And what has happened? Well, I'm going to give away
just
a little.
Let's just say there was
an
open manhole cover.
Yes, and now it's what life is all about. And I will tell you, has anybody seen this movie? I hope you haven't. Anybody want to chip in right now? David Dansky, say something.
Well, first of all, typical Pixar. It's really well done. It tells a great story. They're just wonderful about it. And like you're saying, it's you get to see what your values are, and you pretty much said it. It's just really well done movie.
Yeah,
it goes much deeper than just what your passion is in your life, though. It's really deep.
It's where they come from.
I don't know if you. I'm a huge Trent Reznor fan, and I think he nailed the soundtrack. And John Baptiste, just the soundtrack and everything, amazing job.
It's spectacular. Basically, where do your dreams come from? Where do your interests come from? And basically, now that now that's related to our industry, because that's really the whole idea is, look, I was talking to somebody today, and they're 70 years old, and they're still doing what they do because they love what they're doing. And I'm doing what I love what I'm doing, and I'm here. Everybody in this room loves what they're doing. And so there are people that did have to go get a job at Home Depot or Lowe's or T-Mobile or wherever they, a gardener job, whatever it is. But when it comes time, when it comes back, they're going to have to ask themselves that question: do I want to give up what I've built up with Home Depot? Do I want to give up a 9 to 5 job and have job security, or do I want to go back on the road with something that I love more than life itself, because that's what I wanted to do from ever since I could remember? I think they'll come back. I mean, who wouldn't come back to something? I mean, wouldn't
I
that
think I
be?
think 50%, Jan. I think 50% of those people that actually did decide to do something else because they needed income, I think 50% of them at least will come back to doing their passion. But I think many of them will be just, it's human nature. They'll be doing that reluctantly, full-time job. They'll be doing it reluctantly because of the consistency of it.
I think even
Okay.
that 50% who come back, if they see a 6-month win, they're not going to come back right away until they know it's going to stay back.
Agreed.
They're not going to give up their Home Depot job and do a month's worth of work and then be stuck with no job again, because only certain venues.
Because they got burnt. They got burnt, and they
It's
they don't want to get burnt
intertwined.
again. Yeah.
Everything is so intertwined. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I guarantee
know.
you, they're also banking vacation days so that when they start to stutter back, they can take vacation days and jump into it. I mean,
if they get an opportunity for a 3-day gig here and there, for sure. Yeah.
I'm bankrolling vacation days just for that simple reason right now.
Hey, Chris, what's going on? How's that job over at Home Depot treating you?
What's a vacation?
Chris Prozio, come on. What do you? I mean, would you go to Home Depot if you had to, or if you were working at Home Depot, wouldn't you come back?
Well, number one, yes. I have this thing called a mortgage, so yeah, whatever it takes to pay the mortgage, right? That's a great question. Honestly, I think what we're going to end up with coming out of this, you had all the layoffs and all the furloughs. In the next couple of months, this is going to be the greatest free agency.
He just froze. Ron, up in Canada, when he
No, he's still good. Chris is still good. It was you,
Chris,
Jan.
You still good? You're back?
Yeah, he was saying this is going to be the greatest free agency. Go ahead, Chris.
It's the greatest free agency season anywhere. Sports, doesn't matter. Watching how all this staff comes back. And honestly, if I was on the edge, and one, I was getting tired of being on the road all the time, and two, I was questioning the amount of pay, or maybe my situation has changed and I paid off my house, there's going to be some of these guys, these people that aren't going to return, that did take the job with the orange apron and said, screw it. I can be here 5 days a week. I have constant 2 days off. I know what they are. If it's a weekend or not, it doesn't matter. And I'm at home every night in my own bed. I think, just pulling numbers out of my backside, I think there's going to be a 15 to 20% attrition rate out of this, of technical staff that's not going to return. The rest of that 80%, the ones that got laid off, it's going to be a mishmash of where they end up. And to the folks that were talking about the contacts at company XYZ that have gone away, yep. And if you thought that you had guaranteed business when this thing comes back around, you're screwed. If you're not doing your marketing now, if you're waiting for the phone to ring, it's not going to happen. I've been very fortunate, right? I've worked for a manufacturer. I've stayed employed all through this COVID. But I can tell you, as a salesperson, I've been turning over every frickin' rock looking for any crumb of business. And in doing so, I've turned over a whole new line of business. I've been at this for 30 years, and Jan can tell you, there were a couple of years I was relying on Jan as my number one, source for sales. Well, this year it ain't Jan, so I've had to go find someone to replace him. And that's just the way this business is going to work. I look at it as a great opportunity. We have now turning this soil over. We're turning it over deep. And what we're going to end up with on the backside of this is going to be a whole new crop of shows. We're not going to do shows the same way. I know everyone's saying, I want to get back to doing live shows. I don't think it's going to happen. I think we're going to have a hybrid experience moving forward in corporate America. You'll have a couple hundred people in a ballroom and everyone else is online. So if you're not prepared to do web streaming production, you're out. Period. Done. And again, my humble opinion, and I'm somewhat biased because I happen to sell equipment that makes that happen. But that's what I'm seeing. And I'm seeing more and more people call me up and get quotes on hardware to make this virtual production stuff more compelling and to stick. So it's time to, I see.
They gauge it based on your losses. You can get $20,000, which is guaranteed by the government's just giving you that money. So we've had some good support. There's been rental support where they've come up with a couple of good rental programs, but it's still hurt a lot of guys who are up to their eyeballs in debt and up to their eyeballs in high rents have had a hard time, and like the labor is gone.
Yeah. So Ken Porter, you've heard what Ron has to say. You're our man in Nashville. What do you see down there as far as labor pool? How do you see it coming back?
I'm seeing mostly the younger ones that were doing it just because they thought it was fun. They were good at what they could do in timing, but they have gone off and doing other stuff now. A lot of people, the older ones, are holding on to come back. For us, I'm seeing shed tours coming back. If you notice they announced a full season of Red Rocks this past month. So there's stuff that's, I got schedules of stuff coming up, a few odds and ends, again, Texas and Florida shows, and a few here and there, one Oklahoma in March into April. And then pretty much all the festival stuff has moved back to August, September, October is booking that. So that's going to get pretty hectic in festival stuff, but a lot of the shed stuff is going back out, going to rehearsals in April, May, and June.
But what about the labor pool? What do you see in the labor pool?
I think we're pretty good. The problem is that tours are going to go out not as strong, not as where it was a 12 truck tour is going to go out as a 4 or 5 truck tour, and there consequently won't be as many buses and people on the tour. So it's attrition has kind of set it down too, just from demand was pulled back a little too.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you think, and I'll throw this open to the room, do you think that, like what Ron was saying about like supply and demand, so is it going to be now that the people that we need for labor, are they going to be able to get more money? Are we going to have to bring these people back for a higher salary? Or is it going to be, whatever we can do, because there's just not going to be any money? What do you guys think of that?
I think there's going to be more of a tendency for the management type people to ask us to work for less money, because they're going to be asked to work for less money also. In other words, it's going to shit rolls downhill.
You're saying to me a generous man like Barry Manilow is not going to give you a raise to come back?
I'm pretty sure it's going to be a cut in pay, if anything. So
especially the corporate stuff.
Think about the hierarchy of the whole thing. I've heard grumblings that artists are not going to be able to have guarantees, and they're not going to have as much, as high an income level as they had in the past. And so that's going to roll downhill. They're going to go, well, we got to cut somewhere, and they're going to try to figure out where they can cut. You know how management is. They're going to try to cut salaries. Instead of cutting the quantity of people, they're going to try to cut the salaries of each of the people, I think. But, it remains to be seen. It's all speculation.
Yeah. Kurt, what about you? What do you see? Or Michael?
I'm just trying to unmute. Well, like I said a while ago, a lot of people are leaving. Some of my contacts and client list people, but also, local labor guys that would work for me. They're just kind of getting other gigs. A lot of it out of the industry.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting thing. I mean, I remember a long time ago, I was selling real estate, and then we had the housing bust, and all of a sudden, all of the weaker players who didn't have the longevity and didn't have the wherewithal to hang in with it, the industry had a shakeup, and a lot of people left. But then when the industry came back, people came back. But it's a lot of new blood too. But the thing is, with what we're doing, is we're a technical aspect of the job. You have to know how to run cable. You have to know how to mix sound. You you just can't just sit down at a mixing console and just start mixing a show. There's only a finite number of people that have the quality, like just say of a David Dansky or a Ken Newman in the room, you know?
Think
Well,
you're gonna see, oh,
Ken
we're
Porter.
seeing that a little bit in Vegas too, where I've actually been approached by a couple of companies saying, hey, we're looking at doing XYZ event in the summer, and we always use these 2 people or 3 people. And the client loves them. They know everything the client wants, but we can't bring them back full time. Will you just hire them and we'll hire you? Because it's literally just for the event, but they can't afford to bring them back for just the HR has already said, no, you can't bring anybody back for just one event. It's not.
So you're
worth
talking
our
about
time.
like hotel employees, Mike? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, it's from the production team from a local casino.
Right.
So they're technical people, but again, so the casino is looking at, so far, this is the only, or maybe there's just 2 or 3 events over the span of a few months that they need these people for. So they can't bring them back. HR is like, no.
I have that with a festival at the end of the summer. So a country festival that we have the same issue with, where we've never done the festival before. And their supplier that they've had for several years is flaking on them bad, not returning emails, not returning calls and everything. So anyway, they've called us, and we've been kicking that can for a long time, trying to get them to even talk to us. But anyway, now they've booked us for the festival. But the one condition is that the stage manager, who's actually been there for 4 or 5 years, they would like him back. And he was employed by that company or under contract by the other company. So that's part of the, I could really care less, honestly. The gig is good enough gig for me that I don't really care. And if they want the guy, that's fine. We're good to go. The other thing, Jan, I didn't mention, because I started my thing with saying that, it was important to pivot. And I think that we, here where we are, we actually own a store as well. So we've done pretty good with that. Between Christmas and New Year's, we were shipping out 480 boxes of product from that store. So, again, that was a relatively good pivot for us as far as, keeping staff here and keeping guys going. And some of the guys from production actually ended up going to that store, to the install part of it, and then working on doing install stuff. So, I was I'm doing a big doom and gloom thing here, but some of the guys that were the sort of the longer term guys that were here have done okay. They've done not spectacular, but they've done okay.
Yeah. Well, it would seem to me that the install and the retail going into the home has been booming businesses still. That hasn't cut down. It's just the live aspect of it is where we're sucking wind. I think that's really what it comes down to. I think you'll all agree.
A lot of the sales stuff, unfortunately, is an Amazon stuff, right? So our retail store has been pretty entrenched with Amazon for a long time now, a bunch of years, which of course the entire time I thought was a waste of time, but now of course with COVID has really sort of been a savior for that part of the company. The only downside is that Amazon actually takes 9% for themselves, and when you're working on tight margins, 9% is quite a bit. So although your grosses are really look good, your nets are not that great because because of the fact that Amazon takes a lot. But that's taken years to develop that. Now, some of the guys in our retail side have we spent, thousands and thousands of dollars setting up that whole online thing. It didn't happen overnight, and it certainly couldn't probably happen easily again if you wanted to do it from scratch. But they've literally spent 5-6 years building that entire infrastructure up, only to have it sort of dribble along. And then when COVID hit, it went into massive high gear, and and catapulted that part of our company to doing very, very, very well. But the majority of the sales are Amazon sales. So Jeff is definitely making some good money off us Canadians for sure.
On behalf of Jeff Bezos, I'd like to thank you. That's what I can say.
Oh, no worries. I'm still waiting.
So, also, I mean, what about eBay? Are you guys doing anything on eBay? Is anybody doing anything on eBay? And how are you seeing those kind of sales?
I've sold more things on eBay this year than ever before, and it's because I saw that I needed income. So I went to my garage and said, do I need this? Do I need that? And went through and thousands of dollars of stuff, which helped pay for a lot of groceries so far. And I'm going to keep doing that until we get back to work.
We've sold a lot of used gear on eBay, but it's basically a blowout. Like we just sold a bunch of 89s, JBLs, and we're selling them for like $1,400-$1,500 a box. And we've been trying to sell them for years for a normal, reasonable number, but we kind of gave up, and we need the warehouse space. So we basically we brought the price down to a point where they're actually selling, and we sold a bunch of them at $1,500 a box. But I mean, it's really just a clearance, and we sell them to people far, far, far away from here. I mean, and we just sold some XTAs to somebody in like Zimbabwe or something. Like, it was bizarre. But and again, you're selling that for prices that are embarrassing, and most of the time the guys won't even tell me, because a lot of this sort of stuff, I've already told people that they'll be digging a hole and burying it with me. I've got some Midas consoles that so I got an X200 and a H3K that are going in the ground with me. So I've already told them, don't even think about it. Don't even do it. But the small stuff, they sort of sneak around behind my back and push out the back door, and then they don't tell me, and it just goes into a PayPal account, and I don't even know about it until years later, until I go, hey, whatever happened to all those XTAs we had on that rack? And then, I don't know.
Nice. Good staff. You got a good staff there, Ron.
Well, Ron, just remember, if you really want it buried with you, you better put it in your will. So just because you can't leave it to chance.
Yeah,
if you really want to be buried with it, you got to put it in your will.
Those consoles are much bigger than I am, I think. So, I mean, and they're heavier. So it'd be a pretty deep hole, pretty big, wide, deep hole for me. But, and
the ocean.
I comment on those consoles all the time. I see them go on eBay, or I see them go on Facebook, or guys post them. Like, I saw an XL200 go for like $800, and I literally started crying. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I just can't do it. I just cannot do it. It's just so sad. It's my favorite sounding desk on the entire planet. There's no way I wouldn't let one channel strip go for $800 or less an entire console. But then that's just me.
Yeah, I have two sound webs if anybody needs them.
the green one, the green ones, Bruce.
I have two in a rack with a 3rd octave Ashley EQ, and they're all
you can
wired.
sell that. You know what, Bruce? You can sell that stuff on eBay. I did it.
Yeah. SoundWeb greens, Bruce, actually will go pretty quickly because people need the parts.
Yeah,
as long as $80 a piece or so.
Oh, really?
As long as you don't overprice them, everything can sell. I mean, I've sold a lot of stuff. Yeah.
That's right. Well, I put my Pride up for sale on eBay, and it still hasn't gone.
But the thing about eBay is, just be careful. I would caution anyone that wants to sell on eBay, and Jen will back me up on this. They're really buyer centric. In other words, if the buyer has an issue with the item within whatever it is, 30 days after they purchase it, they can just return it, and you're required to provide a complete refund. It's just incredible, because I had one item that I sold for a friend of mine that stopped working right 2 weeks after he got it, and it was fine when it left here. So I had to give him almost a complete refund. It was a heavy old power amp, and I had to almost refund almost all of his money just so that he could get it fixed. It's just really unnerving when all of a sudden they have the right to return something after you sold it to them.
And don't fight with eBay.
Not worth it. The user always wins. I mean, the buyer always wins. Buyer wins.
And if eBay decides to ban you, they ban you hardcore. They ban you by IP address, by MAC address, every device you've ever logged in with, by bank account, by PayPal. It is really hard to get back on eBay if you've ever been.
I guess you're talking from personal experience. Is that right, or are you just ad-libbing here?
someone I know.
So Carl Winkler, you guys probably have heard of Carl Winkler with Electrosonics.
Well, remember what we're saying here. Everything is an opinion, and whether it's true or not, are we making these names up? Who knows?
Well, Carl recently posted on Facebook, so it's public domain, it's public knowledge, that he got kicked off of eBay for reasons unknown. He just got kicked off, and he still hasn't figured out why. He called eBay, he contacted eBay, he said, why did this happen? They said, we can't tell you. And it's like, what? You're going to kick me off of your platform? He had a couple things for sale at the time, and they kicked him off of eBay with no reason. They couldn't tell him the reason. It's so bizarre.
What was his rating? Do you know before he got kicked off?
Oh, that's a good question, but he's been on since the late 90s, he said, and I bet it was a very high rating, hundreds.
Well,
Maybe
things
even
happen.
thousands.
Sometimes mistakes happen. I mean, look what's going on with me and Bank of America. This has been going on since 9/16, and finally, I think I'm really close to getting my money back, but it's been a nightmare. So, when you get into big corporations like that, you really lose a lot of control. And one thing I will say about control, if you read your agreements with PayPal has the right to give a refund for their buyers for up to 180 days. 180 days, you won't even remember what you sold them at 180 days.
Well, the interesting thing about that, Jan, is that now, although payments can be made via PayPal by a buyer, the payments that I'm getting as a seller are now going into my eBay managed whatever account it's called. Somebody must know what it's called.
As of February 1st, PayPal is no longer a valid way to receive payments on eBay. You must use the eBay.
You can if you check that option. There is a way to do it, but you have to select you want to pay by PayPal. But I mean, eBay.
No, you can pay, but he's talking about receive, Eric. As a seller, you cannot receive payment from a sale from PayPal anymore.
Because I think eBay wants to take over that business, right?
They did. They're charging ever so slightly less, but they're handling it totally differently. So what I did is I opened a new bank account that's just for my eBay sales, and all my sales go in there.
Do you want to give out that number while we're talking about it?
You can have it. There's thousands of dollars in there.
But they're all Canadian.
Oh, eh?
Anyway, before we say goodbye to the YouTube and the Facebook audience, is there anybody that wants to say anything at all? Anybody that wants to chip in and say something?
Well, I know I got one for you. Now, Chris was talking about the fact that shows are going to be largely virtual or streaming shows in the future, much more so than in the past. I know that Richard Bevan from World Stage had mentioned that last time he was on here, and he said something along the lines of it's going to be hybrid, as in live and virtual for a while, and then we'll get back to doing live shows more so. In other words, there's going to be a gradual change.
I think from an entertainment standpoint, that's probably true. I suspect Chris is probably right on the corporate side, because
Richard was talking about the corporate side specifically.
They've just seen how to do a more razzly-dazzly show for less effort, time, people, and maybe now instead of, I don't know, IBM or Google or whomever inviting 5,000 people to the corporate event, they invite the top 500, and now it's a special thing, and you've been invited, and blah blah blah.
That's exactly right. Exactly.
And they take half of what they're saving on the 4,500 not traveling, give it to Chris, and still think they're ahead.
Yeah, and the other side of it the example I like to use when I'm talking to people is you have your CPA, your corporate CPA, and they need to get their accreditation. And in the past, they would go to Las Vegas or Pacoima, go to the Holiday Inn, and watch some guy disseminate PowerPoint from a lectern in a ballroom for 3 days. We just proved that you don't need to do that. That CPA can sit in their office watching the web stream and get the same PowerPoint deck and the same learning in the same time. So why am I going to spend the money to hotel them, to travel them, to do any of that stuff? All I got to do is take them offline out of their office for 3 days and let them just watch the web stream.
I don't think that's going to change. We have clients, we have a whole web streaming portion of what we do here as well. And people have already said that That's not going to go away. Even when COVID goes away and we're back to normal again, there's a new way of doing business. That's what it is. Like, that's not going to go away.
We've learned from this that
Yeah.
you can do that, and it's very effective.
Well, and from a manufacturing standpoint on trade shows, honestly, I tell you guys from the disguise perspective, we will do 2 trade shows a year, and our footprint is going to go from what was a 30 by 30 booth down to essentially a 10 by 15, because we don't see any need at all other
3
than
trade
networking.
shows, Chris. Three. You forgot mine. 3 shows.
Oh yeah. That's not a trade show. That's more of a networking thing. But yeah,
I don't care what you call it. Just make sure the check doesn't bounce.
But you know, in Panasonic just pulled out of NAB. Was it NAB? NAB, right? No, Infocom. You know, manufacturers don't see the need. When I was at Barco, we would set all this stuff up. You know what the common line was from every one of my customers? This is great. I need to see it in my shop. So why set it up? Right? It's about glad handing and meeting people and maybe taking them out for a beer. I can do that with a much smaller footprint, and at the cost of square footage at a trade show, I can save a lot of money.
Yeah, a lot of what was happening here was that we were getting, they were bringing dealers to the distributors' locations. So to actually have them fly across to, you know, we did one in Quebec. So, you know, to have all the dealers fly in there, do the presentation right there, they discovered that they were literally saving thousands and thousands of dollars by doing that. Plus they can take them out, you know, in Montreal, take them out on the town and show them a good time. And, you know, you still get that, warm and fuzzy feeling of a trade show, but it's very, very focused on these particular products, these particular sets of seminars that you know you really get a lot more focus out of it. So
and those particular people.
Exactly. I mean, you're basically this is your clientele. This is who you're selling to, and you're getting rid of all the extra riffraff that's out there. These are the guys that are supporting you anyway. So why not deal directly with them?
Yeah.
It's been working here in Canada quite well.
You still need trade shows for the business that you're not talking to, for those new people coming in, but you don't need the same expenditure just to impress your core customers. And the other thing that I've taken from companies in the past, focusing my spend on those intimate events, I don't have to worry about Bob going down the aisle to my competitor after he just spent 30 minutes with me. I've got this guy for a day or 2 days.
And getting a better t-shirt so he stays longer.
So what do you think about the public trade shows like auto shows, for example? Auto shows generate a lot of revenue for the entire country.
I can do a lot of this virtual. I'm telling you.
Auto shows are for the public. What I'm saying is
press. No, auto shows are for the press.
There's some press element to it. But what I'm saying is, like, say, for instance, the LA Auto Show or the Detroit Auto Show, that's for the public to come see all the manufacturers under one roof. You know,
well,
I still think that's very viable, and that you're not going to replace that with an online experience.
I'm with Chris. Those auto shows are for the press. They just got the public to pay for it.
Yeah, and I think that you're going to be able to see some of that virtual. The other trend line, which deals nothing with this group at all, is, and I can say this because I have a 20-year-old and a 24-year-old, the love affair of the automobile that I have is not with the younger generation. People getting excited about the latest whatever. I think auto shows are, in general, that just specifically to that, are going away. But that's
Dad, it's just a car. Do you get that? I've heard that for years. Dad, it's just a car.
Yeah, I get that. Or like my now 20-year-old, when I was 16, I was there at the DMV on my birthday to get my license. I had to drag her to the DMV when she was 17 and a half to finally get the shit done because I was tired of taking her to school.
Neither one of my kids got their licenses till after high school. I thought that was very strange.
Why do you think that is?
Because
were you too cheap to buy them a car? Is that what it is? Were you too cheap to buy them their own car?
No, she had a car.
Well,
they don't need a car to socialize anymore.
Funny thing is when both of them went to college, they both got hand-me-down cars. So did I buy them a car? Technically, yes. I had to buy my own first car, but for some reason they didn't.
But was it a Mercedes? That's what I want to know.
No.
No.
300,000-mile Honda Accords, more like.
Yeah.
Here's your college car. Take care of it. It's not going to last much longer.
I mean,
Anyway.
the reason that kids don't care so much is that they don't need a car to socialize anymore. They're socializing without a car, and
True.
they're fine.
You know, I
Well,
hadn't thought of it that way. That's a great way to think about it.
I think that the big thing is that they would go to the mall. I know when I was a kid, I would go to the mall, and I see that all over the place. Where the mall is, but the malls are shrinking because of of virtual stores.
Yeah.
So I guess that's but people are people, and one thing one thing that Buckminster Fuller told me, it says the more high tech we get, the more high touch we need as people. And I believe that to be true even today more than ever before, because we need people, I'm not going to get into a Barbara Streisand thing here, but we really do need people. And the fact of the matter is that we haven't been able to touch people, or we haven't been able to hug people, or we haven't been able to see people that we love and be really close to them. That is the hardest part of this whole epidemic and pandemic, And so with that, this is why this particular meeting is so great, because we come together like-minded people, sharing ideas and concepts, and we really care about one another. Now, I didn't get into mental health today, but we will get into it. But it's important for us to all be healthy. And I want to quote one thing before we leave, and this is I'm not going to give him credit unless he wants it to. Screw it, I'll give him credit. Dirk Schubert, a good guy, really love it. He was talking with Deepak Chopra, and this is the story he told me. And Deepak Chopra said to him, "What do you do for a living?" And Dirk said, "I do sound." And Deepak turned to him and says, "No, what you do is you amplify the healing power of music. You amplify the healing power of music. That's what we do." And so I think that is a great way for us to go out today and remind everybody, look, if you've enjoyed the show, give it a thumbs up. Even if you didn't enjoy the show and you're listening to it for this longer period of time, give it a thumbs up. But more importantly, to everybody here on the panel, go up to the social media, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, tell people about it. Let's get more people in the room. Let's build this up to something that where we have, because the more ideas we have, the better off we'll be as people. And that's all I could say. So for those people out there watching in virtual land, I want to thank you all for tuning in and sharing sharing the program with everybody. And for those people in the room, I can't tell you how much I thank you for sharing your ideas, yourself, your souls, your being with us, and being here for me as a therapeutic, because this is the best support group that I've ever been in. And so I want to thank you all. Remember, you make it happen. We'll see you next week on Wednesday. For those people listening out there, we're saying goodbye. For those people in the room, let's talk about those people that just left. All right? That's what I could say. And
so Bruce, you hear that? You